Welcome to Will Read. My name is Will. Today I'm reading The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart, Poems for Men, by Robert Bly, James Hillman, and Michael Meade. I know the earth, and I am sad. My pain comes from the north wind and from the south wind, like those neuter eggs certain rare birds lay in the wind. Cesar Vallejo. A man often follows or flies on an ascending arc, headed toward brilliance, inner power, authority, leadership, and community, and that arc is very beautiful. But many ancient stories declare that in the midst of a man's beautiful ascending arc, the time will come naturally when he will find himself falling. He will find himself on the road of ashes and discover at night that he is holding the ashy hand of the Lord of Death or the Lord of Divorce. He will find himself noticing the tears inside brooms or old boards, noticing how much grief the whales carry in their skulls. He realizes how much he has already lost in the reasonable way he chose to live, and how much he could easily lose in the next week. For some men it is a time of crying in airports. For 2 years all I did, it seems to me, was cry in airports. The ashes he gets on his palm from holding hands with the Lord of Loss at night he puts on his face, and the ashes he wears will be darker than an ashy fingerprint on the forehead, even though that Catholic ritual on Ash Wednesday is so beautiful. The greatest masculine art has always had what the Romans called gravitas, soberness, weight, and grief. We can feel gravity when we see great art. We remember the word grave, and gravide in French remembers pregnancy. We naturally honor gravitas in Rembrandt and Goya and Turner, particularly in his sea paintings, and we honor it as well in certain 20th century painters such as Max Ernst and the German artist Anselm Kiefer. We could say each of these artists has accomplished before he made the paintings a descent, a fall, a drop through the floor. He has honored an agreement he could not resist to go into grief, into katabasis, as the ancient Greeks called it, a drop into the underworld, that which the elevated hero, such as Oedipus, found himself undergoing. Tragedies, then, are not so much about personality flaws as about the depths that call up to certain men and insist that they descend. In our century, the Spanish and the South American poets have been the masters of descent. Neruda says that he is sad because he knows the earth. That implies that the earth itself is in grief. We can feel the sadness in the northern pines. The South Americans feel it in the rainforest, in the little towns where nothing happens. But above all, there is a terrifying deserted dining room, and around it there are expanses, sunken factories, pieces of timber which I alone know. Because I am sad, and because I travel, and I know the earth, and I am sad. Pablo Neruda. A few years ago in Romania, archaeologists found a small basalt statue, very elegant in its blackness, of a man seated. It is the oldest sorrowing male so far found. It hints that grief has been for thousands of years a masculine emotion. Men's sorrow seems unusual in that it seems inexplicable. Perhaps that sorrow goes back to the 1,000,000 or so years when men were primarily hunters. They felt the sorrow of the animal whose life they took, or perhaps they felt the sadness of the forest. The Mediterranean world still believed at the time of Christ that there is such a thing as lacrimae rerum, that is, tears inside things, or tears inside nature itself. Perhaps whales and bears and oceans bear grief inside them. Ancient man lived for so many thousands of years outdoors, hunting, running, watching, and he lived in such intimate contact with animals that we can still feel in the Dordogne paintings how thin the veil was between men and creatures. The sorrow of animals passed directly into men. This may be the unexplainable grief that Cesar Vallejo says comes from the north wind and from the south wind, as is neither father nor son. Perhaps that is why, for men, depression is sometimes the entrance to soul, melancholy a wide road to God, and ordinary grief a door that, when swung wide, opens into feeling. Men often enter genuine feeling for the first time when in deep grief, after cheerfulness and excitement have failed for years to bring them there. Private grief can lead them to feel the sorrow of the world. Masculine sadness, then, is a holy thing. Some men in middle age labor to find the holy stair right to the bottom of the night. It is the old god, Saturn, who presides over this dive, and it is he who knows the sadness of the huge cliffs and the melancholy that animals feel in having to eat each other dawn after dawn, and the puzzled grief we all feel at being appointed to do mysterious tasks here on this planet among mountain meadows and falling stars. Let the young rain of tears come, let the calm hands of grief come. It's not all as evil as you think. Rolf Jacobson. The growth of a man can be imagined as a power that gradually expands downward. The voice expands downward into the open vowels that carry emotion and into the rough consonants that are like gates holding that water. The hurt feelings expand downward into compassion. The intelligence expands with awe into the great arguments or antinomies men have debated for centuries. And the mood man expands downward into those vast rooms of melancholy under the earth, where we are more alive the older we get, more in tune with the earth and the great roots. R.B.